Thank you for having me here. My name is Nishant Tiku. I live and work in Ladakh, and that's the project I work with, the Ice Stupa project, with an organization called Himalayan Institute of Alternatives. So let's get into it. I'm sure a lot of you would have been to Ladakh, seen Ladakh in pictures, in movies and stuff. But just to set up a context, Ladakh sits on the crown of a country, and often it is known as the third pole. Why do we call it the third pole? Because outside of the north and south pole, it has the biggest freshwater reserve on which about 2 billion people are dependent directly or indirectly. Ladakh is very cold. It could get from positive 40 to negative 40. So the span is great. And it is also a desert, high altitude desert. So here in Udaipur, you guys get about 600 mm of annual precipitation. In Ladakh, we get only 100 mm. So that's a lot of disparity between places. And despite of all these challenges, people in Ladakh have not only survived but thrived over the years and centuries and millennia to say. There have been numerous cultures who have lived there, come up with the tradition, the practices which are beautiful to see, just like any other place in our country and in the world. But at the same time, I also come from another Ladakh, or I'd say another Himalayas. The kind of anthropogenic, man-made climate change as an impact has a toll on the mountains. I believe the people who live closest to the nature are the ones who feel the brunt of climate change the first and the foremost. Water is so important in a society like Ladakh that we have songs about it, sayings about it. And one such saying that I really resonate with is called Chu Medna Yul Med, Ama Medna Zan Med, which translates to without water there is no life, without mother there is no food.
shooting that the council was on it. The me Dharma, shoot the army on it. Neither but the Lego, Young, but the Rola, or the people, so much people, I did the motor. Shoot let the Lego, me do a car, the Lego to go down to Manana. To down Madame Palan, could not have it down the door open to a good the night. The quick I took the Pantos in Nook. Tawana door.
Chiaro che sia per ma ne mata no che chiama una poi tanto sta mañana perché ci ma ya tiene que dar a botón para no vita da positiva perché se ti dicono chiaro Neneli Moses Nangi Kulumala Jixis Kipoyotu Jing Tangma Bate Yulpo Ganga for Poyotu Yang Tutum Abja Tukya Tukya Inna 덕선의 통지가 육대 복식다 나는이요. 짐탕마 감시 방스도 양 두돈이 찍찍 콜통살이요.
Every time I see it, it feels like I'm seeing it for the first time again. But this is not only the story of Kolum. This is the story of a lot of places, villages, settlements in the mountains, not only in Ladakh, Himachal, Uttarakhand, Northeast, and across the world actually. So, what the old lady was saying, her name is Ama Phunsup Dorima, we'll come back to her. But yeah, what she was saying was, for an agrarian society like Ladakh, where the agriculture season is only 6 months, since it doesn't snow anymore the way it used to in the mountains, the sowing period is the water deficit period. And it is understood that when you sow a seed and you don't have enough water, the seed will not grow. Both quality and quantity of your crops will be impacted. And for an agrarian society, that's devastating. And that's what happened with Kulu. The people abandoned the village in 2010 because there was not enough water to support agriculture, animal, or even humans. So, in order to tackle a problem like this, I work with an organization called Himalayan Institute of Alternatives, Ladakh. It is founded by Mr. Sonam Wangchuk. Solutions to the issues of mountain communities should come from within. See, these guys, as I said, they've not only survived in these inhospitable conditions, but they've only thrived as well. So they must have done something right from centuries and millennia in order to do that. So what we try to do is try to gather that information, bridge the gap, and introduce new technologies in order to find solutions to these problems. And where I work with water, and I've had a very difficult time in explaining people what do I do. So I simply say, I make glaciers. So these are artificial glaciers, more scientifically saying artificial ice reservoirs because glaciers have a scientific definition. The idea is to store the winter meltwater, which is not used in agriculture, but store it in shape of ice, in form of ice. Shapes could be different. This is a vertical one, we've got horizontal, we've got frozen waterfalls sort of things. The idea is that this water will melt in early spring when the crops, they need sowing. For sowing, they need water. And there is no embedded energy, by the way. There is no pump, there is no electricity, there is nothing as such used in making these things. We use what nature has given us, gravity. If you flow water from a higher location to a lower location through siphoning, it will flow by itself. And all we do is break the particles of water, and rest of the things is done by the cold in Ladakh. It freezes instantly. And cone actually is a very interesting shape. It's the shape of the nature. If you go in limestone caves, if you see water dripping out of a tap and getting frozen, it's conical, always. Cone is also a beautiful shape because it has the least surface area with respect to the most volume. So no matter where I make it, in whatever direction, a side of cone will always be on the north and sun will never hit it. So we can timely meld these structures in order to get water when we want, where we want, for whatever purpose we want. So moving on. But life wasn't always the same, okay? This is my second phase of life, honestly. So I did my undergrad in oil field geology, and I worked in fossil fuel industry for 6 years. I was a well site geologist, moved into the drilling side of it, submitting reports, assessments, stuff like that. But I always thought to myself deep within that this is probably not what I want to do all my life. And then came a moment. I was working in east part of India with an organization, and when we drill the ground, we pump a lot of fluids in the ground in order to extract the oil and natural gas. And I had befriended a community, a local village there. I went back to the community after a month or so, and I got to know that there's a tough between the organization and the community. And since I had made friends there, I wanted to understand why and try to resolve if I could. Then when I went to the village, what I learned was the same place where we were working and pumping these fluids in the ground had a leak through one of the fractures, and it, I would say, destroyed their water supply. And this water supply was for drinking, for animals, for agriculture, everything. And essentially what happened, what I learned was that that particular water and piece of land will never be used, at least for the next couple of generations. So I felt responsible. I felt that a part of me has contributed in annihilating this entire community. And that was the time I decided to hang my boots. I quit my job, and I had no clue what I would do because I didn't save, so I didn't have the habit. But I left. I left oilfield. I left my job, and I traveled. And traveling teaches you a lot. It taught me a lot during my journey. And what taught me was, when I was in oilfield, I was being there. I wanted a journey to happen. I wanted my journey of becoming to happen. And becoming cannot happen until and unless you leave being. You have to stop being and then only becoming can happen. And it took me to a journey. I traveled, I worked odd jobs, went here and there, met a lot of people. And talking to them made me understand there is more to life than what I was doing until now. And how organizations, people have visions. But in order to achieve those visions, you have smaller missions. And then in between those missions, you every now and then regroup to find, okay, am I going right? Do I need a course correction or something? So in order from being to becoming to become is a journey, right? And all of these words have one common thing, be in between. But just being is not enough. If I would have just been and witnessed what I witnessed and not do anything about it, I would be standing here in front of you today. So be has to do a lot with do. And it's a symbiotic relationship. It goes back and forth, back and forth. And be and do for me, my own journey, needed a change in me. Because I had come from a silo, I worked in oil field, I didn't care about much things in my life. So a change was needed. And a change can only come from learning, is what I believe. Along with learning, unlearning is equally important. Because you can only learn when you unlearn what you have in your mind and then evolve. So I call this a virtuous cycle. Let's start from the top. Initiative. You can have all the feelings in your heart and all the ideas in your head, but as long as you don't do something about it with your hands, there is no moving forward. So with initiative, if you take, comes action. With actions come experiences. And with experience come confidence. Now there's a question mark with confidence. Confidence is very tricky. You could be overconfident, underconfident. I mean, you drink a couple of beers, you feel very confident. And then the next morning you're like, oh damn, what did I do? Right? So, but with confidence in doing, there could be only two possibilities. Either you fail. And if you fail, what you have gained is experience. And you go back to confidence if you keep trying, there will come a point in time that you will succeed. And trust me guys, nothing succeeds like success itself. Going back to Kulum. So I had to piece it together. Kulum is a story of resilience and revival. When we understood what was the issue with Kulum, we tried to do what we do best, make glaciers. And we made all kinds of glaciers, frozen waterfalls, horizontal glaciers, an ice dam. All in all, in Kulum village for the last 4 years, we've been able to conserve more than 150 million liters of water. And that translated into restarting the agricultural practices back in 2021. But Kulum had a challenge. It was a teeter, partridge, or what we call shakpa. So in Kulum, agriculture hadn't happened for 12 years. So we as humans had a debt to pay. When you do agriculture, in middle you have important crops, and on the periphery you grow stuff for animals, for birds. So this guy ate everything that we grew the first year, like everything. But there was something that this guy couldn't eat, which was the root vegetables, potatoes. It ate everything, but not something that grew underground. So from our experience, we failed. And through failure, we understood that, okay, if I grow root vegetables, these guys won't be able to eat it. And for the first time in 2021, we harvested 1,300 kilos of potato from Kulum. And we couldn't stop there. Kulum has 14 acres of land. What we did was essentially to install drip irrigation system in the entire village, growing root vegetables with the local villagers. You can see Aram Tunduk holding zucchini like a baby. Like it's his own baby. And the soil is so great, the air is wonderful, the water is beautiful, everything grows. And coming back to Ama Khusuk Dolma. So, in the video, when you see her, she sees helpless, she sees sad. Like she can't do anything about the situation. But guys, working with this community for the last 4 years, what we observe that Ama Khusuk Dolma, who is 80 years old, has no formal education, learned each and every part of the project. She not only helped in setting up, managing, repairing the solar powered micro irrigation system that we said, but she cultivated her lands, hundreds and thousands of kilos of potatoes. And this year we had about 9,000 kilos of produce, among other things. So I think for me, that is the art of becoming. Thank you.